We're looking at Marcionism this morning, named after this guy named... No, I'm not clicking again either. If you click, is that because it clicked away from the slideshow? Or maybe I'm just out of batteries. It was working. Oh, there we go. All right. Well, now it's working for me, so. All right, so Marcion. Let me just give you a little bit of brief time. We're not going to spend too much time on his history, but we're going to get into, his teaching. Marcion was this guy. He was very early. Look at those dates. Born AD 84, so that is probably before the book of Revelation was written, and probably, and before John the Apostle would have died. So this guy is really early church history. Born AD 84, died in about 160. He was born in a city called Sinope, I don't know, in the region of Pontus. That's in northern Turkey, and it's on the coast of the Black Sea. So this is where this guy's from. He's from modern-day Turkey, coast of the Black Sea. And what we know about him is that his father was a bishop in that city of, I'm going to say Sinope. I'm just going to say that. And he was actually excommunicated by his own father for his false teachings, which tells you something about maybe the state of the church then. That takes some guts to excommunicate your own son, but his dad did it because he was teaching falsely. And so back then, before the internet, he just up and went somewhere else. In AD 135-ish, he headed to Rome, where then he was excommunicated for his false teaching as well. He then kind of started his own church and died in 160 AD. And just to give you a little bit of perspective, he started his own church teaching his own false teachings, his heresies, which we're going to talk about it. Those lasted for about 300 years and spread all over the Mediterranean area. So Marcion had a big effect, and you can see his big effect in the number of early church theologians who wrote books like against Marcion or against Marcionism. There's so many, Tertullian, Irenaeus, Hippolytus, all these names wrote books against his false teaching. So this was a big thing that the early church had to deal with. So let's get on to his actual teachings. If you look at your handout, I have his teachings listed for you there so we can refer back to them throughout the lesson. But let me just briefly talk about some of them. First, he believed that the Old Testament God was different from the Father of Jesus. So if you remember back to Philip's lesson, that was also a similar point with Gnosticism. So he thought when you look at the Old Testament God and you look at the God of the New Testament revealed as the Father of Jesus, these are two separate gods. That's a big teaching they had. Second, which led him, kind of following from that, to reject anything Jewish in the New Testament. He rejected anything Jewish in the New Testament, which means that he rejected most of the New Testament. Marcion was actually one of the first, probably the first heretic, but one of the first persons to come up with a canon, a list of books that he had approved. And it consisted of 10 of Paul's letters. He left out the letters to Titus and Timothy. He left those out. So 10 of Paul's letters and a modified version of the Gospel of Luke, in which he took the Gospel of Luke, went through it, and cut out anything that he thought was Jewish and kind of revised it till it fit what he thought it should teach. So gone is any birth narrative. Gone is actually the death and resurrection. It's just kind of healings and miracles and some moral teachings. So that's how he ended up with his New Testament canon. Marcion forbade marriage. He said marriage is something evil that the God of the Old Testament instituted. Christians shouldn't get married. He denied the true humanity of Christ. That's why he cut out the birth narrative in the Gospel of Luke as well, because he also denied the virgin birth. And he had a very, very sharp divide between mercy and love on the one hand and law and justice on the other hand. And Marcion wanted to say, look, Christianity is all about love and mercy. He was kind of like an ancient hippie. He said, all you need is love, guys. Get rid of that Old Testament. That's all law and justice and wrath. You don't need that. All you need is love. That's Marcion for you. Let me give you a little bit of a elaboration on that first one. And I want to do this because it kind of reveals something very important to understand about heresies, and that's this. Heretics almost always, I won't say always, but almost always appeal to a straightforward, plain reading of the Bible. They'll almost always say, you know what, look, we just read the Bible. We have a straightforward, plain reading of the Bible, and that's how we get to what we see. And we'll see this in that he thought the God of the Old Testament, when you look at the God of the Old Testament, that God of the Old Testament, he's ignorant, he changes his mind, he is fickle, he repents, he just doesn't know things. And so it says that in the Old Testament. That's just the plain reading of the Old Testament. And let me give you an example of this. This is from a work written by Marcion, and this is what he says. He says that the Creator God is judicial, harsh, mighty in war, but the supreme God, that's talking about the Father of Jesus, is gentle and simply good and excellent. And then he gives an example. This is how he supports that. He says this, the Creator called out to Adam, "Where art thou?" as if ignorant of where Adam was. And when Adam alleged that the shame of his nakedness was the reason for hiding himself, the Creator inquired whether he had eaten of the tree as if he were in doubt. Do you see what he's saying there? Marcion's reading the text of Genesis, and he's saying, look, when God comes down in Genesis 3 and says, Adam, where are you? God must not have known, otherwise he wouldn't have asked the question. Straightforward, plain reading of the text. That's what Marcion's claiming. And then when God asked Adam, Adam, where, did you eat from the tree? God was in doubt. He didn't know. And so Marcion would say, look, a plain, straightforward reading of the text. And you can see, maybe how you could get there. I think you do have to ignore a lot of other texts, but then you could take that hermeneutic and read through the Bible and say, look, it says God repents, God changes his mind, he changes his purposes. It said God, became angry and then became, merciful, that he's changing all the time. And you just take this God and read it with a straightforward hermeneutic. And so that's what Marcion does. And that's where he ends up with this, okay, look, the God of the Old Testament is different from the God of the New Testament. I just want to illustrate that because heretics often do that. When we talk about Arianism, which believes that Jesus was the first created being, will adopt a similar tactic and say things like, look, when Jesus says the Father is greater than I, obviously Jesus is saying that then he's not equal with God in divinity. So heretics like to take the text that they want and say, we're going to read these straightforwardly. Obviously, we disagree with how he's doing that. I don't think it actually is reading it how the text should be understood. But let's stop for a moment. I want us to think about the allure of Marcionism for a second. Yeah, you like my picture up there. I knew someone would get it. The allure of Marcionism. And I want you now to stop and take off your orthodox hats and set them to the side and try to think like a heretic. And think, why would Marcionism be attractive? Why would it spread and be a problem for hundreds of years in the church? Why would people buy in to this false teaching? So I want us to take a couple minutes and think about that. This is a 2-minute timer, but I'm going to stop it at 1 minute. So just think, why would Marcionism be attractive? And then you're going to give me some ideas. If you want, you can talk. If you want to think by yourself, think by yourself. Yeah, so it could lead to a works-based salvation. Although I don't think Marcion denied Jesus was God. I think he denied his humanity. So he said Jesus wasn't truly human. All right, what else? Remember, you're thinking like heretics. You don't have to. I know we can answer the objections in our own head as we think of them, but let's just think, like, what would make this attractive for some people? Yeah, no justice, no. Yeah, you get to leave the uncomfortable aspects aside, maybe. Yeah. Here are some that I thought of which are along the lines that you guys have said. First is that it clearly separates Christianity from Judaism. Now, this is me trying to think back as like an early Christian. That was a big deal of, in the Roman Empire, if you were being persecuted as a Christian, there was a big attraction to go back to Judaism. Judaism was a established religion. It was a safe place. Maybe a lot of your social network was there. So, but Marcionism so clearly separates them. That would be attractive. It adopts that straightforward reading of the Old Testament that we talked about. It doesn't have to deal with embarrassing Old Testament stories. So you read the Old Testament, and a lot of apologetics today might center around like, well, how could God allow, or how could God maybe judge the world in the flood, and he killed so many people? Or Sodom and Gomorrah, or send in Israel to drive out the nations from the land of Canaan. How could God command those things? Those are apologetic issues that Marcion solves by saying, we don't have to deal with that. That was the creator God, not the father of Jesus. So, you just get to cut it out. No more embarrassing stories. Emphasize love and mercy over law and justice. I mean, who doesn't like that? That's a theme maybe throughout church history of people doing that. And it solves the mystery of the incarnation, right? Have you ever tried to sit down and think exactly and comprehend, all right, how could this one person, the Son of God, be both truly divine and truly human and take on a human nature, the unchangeable God taking on a changeable human nature, and how does that all work? It's that's a great thing to think about, and it's also going to just boggle your mind because it's beyond us to fully grasp. Now, there are a lot of things we can come to, and we know where we don't want to go, denying that he's truly human or truly divine or something like that. And this, solves having that mystery in Christianity by saying, look, he didn't actually become truly human. This makes Christianity more comprehensible. You can understand. If Jesus is just divine and not human, you can understand that a lot more. All right. I want us now to think about the cruelty of Marcionism. Imagine that this was still around, which we're actually going to get to that. What is it that this heresy, and when I say cruelty, I mean, what are the practical effects of this upon someone's spiritual life? If you were to buy into Marcionism, what would be the practical spiritual effect, the cruelty of this heresy? Because we do believe that, as we're going through this, heresies they're not only false, but they are destroying of people's spiritual lives. So we'll just do just a minute on this. And this one, why don't you find someone near you, and run past them your ideas. What is the cruelty of this heresy? I'm sure that there are responses in text that you guys thought of that I did not think of because there's a whole host, or that I didn't put up there. So let's hear, how would you respond to this? First, maybe are there Bible passages you thought of that would respond to some of the teachings of Marcion? Yeah, so Matthew 5, from the word of Christ, saying something about the Old Testament that he wasn't abolishing. Yeah, very good. What else? Yeah, and which would, kind of get to a number of points, but also if you're going to deny that Christ truly became human, that is impossible. How does he set you free from that? Yeah. What else? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's one way to do it. You could just point out how he has mischaracterized the Old Testament. The Old Testament God is not just all wrath and justice and something like that. The Old Testament God in many ways is portrayed, in the same way that it is in the New Testament, as a God of compassion and love who shows grace to his people and redeems them. Yeah, so I think that would be a very good place to go to, yeah. He did cut out 2 Timothy, yeah. yeah. If you're going to start with okay, I'm getting rid of the whole Old Testament, then you go to the New Testament, you got to get rid of passages like that in the New Testament, which, chuck that out because that says, no, the Old Testament is useful for teaching and correcting and God-breathed. Yeah. There you yeah, pocket-sized Bibles. Yeah. Here are some passages I thought of in addition to yours, and I've maybe focused on a few things. I think the ones up here are all from books he does accept. So he did modify them, but this is from 1 Corinthians 8, where it says, that for us there is one God, the Father, from whom are all things. So it's saying the Father is the one who created all things. There's only one God. God, the Old and New Testament, same. This is another one which talks about how the gospel was promised beforehand in the Holy Scriptures. The gospel was promised in the Old Testament from Romans, it says. And it says that this gospel concerned the Son who descended from David according to the flesh. Who took on a true human nature. I won't spend too much time on these because there's, both of those from 1 Corinthians and from Romans talk about how the Old Testament was written for our instruction and for our example. Before we get on to the next one, I do have some pictures I want to show you. These are all really cool. At least I like them. This is a picture of New Testament citations and allusions in the Old Testament. So the blue around the outside are books in the Old Testament. The orange is books in the New Testament. And then every line is a citation or an allusion. Look how many lines there are. A lot, right? Well, this is only scratching the surface because I thought of some that aren't in there. For example, the book of Judges doesn't have any lines going from it, but you read in the New Testament, and there's a couple times that the book of Judges is at least referenced. So there should be some lines there. So this doesn't even have all of them. Here's a couple more pictures that I think show just the interconnectedness of the Old and New Testament that Marcion just has to throw out. This is a picture that's on my desktop background on my office, if you ever see it. This is a picture of cross-references in the Bible. So this is going beyond allusions even. This is just cross-references, and it's over like 60,000 cross-references in the Bible, and they're color-coded by how far apart the books are. And every little line down at the bottom is a chapter of the Bible. So you can see Psalm 119 right in the middle. That's a really long line because it's a really long chapter. But look how interconnected the Bible is. Here's another graphic just showing the same exact thing with allusions going backwards and forwards on the top and bottom between the Old and New Testament. Each one of those lines, a cross-reference. And then if we were to zoom in and do something like this, this is a line showing cross-references from the book of Romans, just the book of Romans, which Marcion accepted, and the book of Isaiah, one book in the Old Testament. And look how often and how many lines there are there. Now, Isaiah is one of those books that Paul was primarily dependent upon. Isaiah figures big in the thought of Paul. And just look how interconnected the Old and New Testament is. I mean, you cannot have the New Testament cut off from the Old Testament because it's just woven in. So I just want to show those graphics to kind of point out, when you just read the New Testament and you look at how it uses the Old Testament, how often it refers to the Old Testament, how often it alludes to the Old Testament, talks about the same things, it just doesn't work to break them apart. Did you guys catch these in the creeds? I didn't ask about that, but if you got the chance to read the creeds as well, all the creeds clearly affirm that there's one God who is the Father who created heaven and earth, right? So they immediately rule out Marcionism because Marcion wants to say, no, God the Creator, different from Father of Jesus. And they clearly say that there is his Son, became incarnate, was born of the Virgin Mary, so he took on a true human nature. The creeds, even in just setting out basic Orthodox faith, we're doing it with a view towards making sure we are distinguishing ourselves from heresy and clearly contradicting them. So you can see that up there in the creeds. All right, our last question for you to think about, and the last thing I want us to talk about, is where do we see Marcionism today? We'll take 1 minute. Just think, maybe we don't see all aspects of it, but where do we see certain aspects of its teachings today? How do we see it cropping up today, practically or doctrinally? Go ahead and think for a minute. Where do we see it? What are some modern manifestations of Marcionism? Do you see any of its tenets around today? What'd you come up with? I think that is all around. That is kind of like the main starting point of modern liberal theology, is that, it just affirms the God of universal love and universal brotherhood of man and kind of steer clear of anything else. Yeah, definitely around today. What else? We're going to get there. Yeah, there are even some famous teachers in the church saying we can unhitch our faith from the Old Testament. Here is what I thought of. This is maybe something that you have familiar with, but there's a whole movement called process theology, which is started in the 1800s, which teaches that God develops and changes, so that even if they would supposedly say that the same being is the God between the Old Testament and the New Testament, it's a different God because he has changed. So God processes and it undergoes change and development. Liberal theology is just saying that divine love is opposed to divine wrath, and we only want divine love. That's around today. Here's some practical ways I think it appears up when Christians never read the Old Testament. Now, I'm not claiming that you're heretical if you never read the Old Testament, but it's a functioning as if the Old Testament were not meant for us today. It's maybe functional Marcionism in that sense. So that practical outwork can be around. Same thing with, if pastors never preach from the Old Testament. If the Old Testament is absent from the worship of the church and from the life of the church, that's kind of functionally granting, Marcion's position that we don't need the Old Testament. We can take it out. We're at close to time, but this is who Kevin mentioned. Andy Stanley's a famous pastor. He's pastor of North Point Ministries. And this is what he said. These are from a sermon and an interview. He makes the argument. Now, I want to be clear. I'm not claiming that he's a full-blown Marcion, but look at how similar what he's saying is to Marcion's teaching about the Old Testament. He says that James, Peter, and Paul elected to unhitch the Christian faith from their Jewish scriptures. And my friend, we must as well unhitch our faith from the Old Testament. He says that the less we depend on the Old Testament to prop up our New Testament faith, the better. And that the Old Testament was not the go-to source regarding any behavior for the church. Now, that one boggles my mind, because if you read the Old Testament, how often do you see Jesus saying, have you not read the Old Testament? And when people question him, don't you read the scriptures? This is what they say. That's what you do. How often when you read Paul does he ground his moral exhortations in the teaching of the Old Testament? And yet, this is what he says, and I just got a piece of mail, and I can't plan it better. Just got an advertisement in the mail for me for a conference in which he is a primary speaker. And yet, it's okay. So, again, I don't think it is an individual judgment that I get to label people heretics or not. I think that's a judgment of the church. Yet, his teaching shows some very scary similarities on these points to Marcionism, and that's very popular today. So it's still around. Here are some takeaways I want for us to have. If you're thinking, all right, we've seen this, what are takeaways for us? Now, having kind of learned about this early heresy, here's what I want us to come away with. One, that the Bible, Old and New Testament, is one book written by the same God. We aren't supposed to be functional Marcionites by, letting half of our Bibles be totally unused in our lives. We should be Christians who read Old and New Testaments. Second, as Christians, we should beware of making a canon within a canon. Now, most of us are not tempted like Marcion or like Thomas Jefferson to cut pages out of our Bibles because we don't like them. Yet we can just ignore them and kind of say, well, these are the passages that are really important, and kind of choose them based on what we want them to say. There's some Christians who would say, well, the red letters, the words of Jesus, are more important than all the other letters, and so we get to ignore everything else, sort of, to just focus on those red letters. But that's, I think, functioning like a Marcionite, so we shouldn't make a canon within a canon. All of God's word is inspired, and all of it is for his people. And then lastly, as a word of encouragement for us, we must not oppose God's love and mercy to his wrath and law. If you look at the Bible, those two things are never opposed. It's the same God who is a God of love and a God of wrath. And if they're not a contradiction in God, then we can't claim that they are a contradiction. He is one and the same God who rewards and saves sinners, and one and the same God who judges the wicked. So we don't get to come in with our own conception of what should or shouldn't be there and kind of say, well, no, God has to be like this and conform to our moral standards. So we shouldn't oppose God's love and mercy with his wrath and law. That is Marcionism. And I know we go quickly through these things, but I hope you at least see those takeaways, and you can see, that this is an important thing for the church to be aware of, so that we don't function like we've adopted the teachings of Marcion, even if we haven't. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for your grace. We thank you that you have given us your word. Lord, I pray that we would submit ourselves to it, that we would not set ourselves above it to determine what should or shouldn't be in there, or what is more true or less true, or what we want there to be, that we would submit ourselves to it and to the whole of it, seeking to interpret it well, seeking to see how your own word interprets itself for us and lays us the pattern of how we are to understand it. And I pray then that we would see the true gospel of your Son, Jesus Christ, and how he saves us from our sins. We pray that we would be resting and trusting in him today. We pray this in his name. Amen. By the way, if you want any of those pictures of the interconnectedness, Old New Testament, just email me and I can send you, where I found them. I really love pictures like that, so I kind of collect them because I like how they show visually what we kind of know from reading the Bible. It's interconnectedness. All right. Have a great Mother's Day, everyone.